Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Parsha. As I'm sure you recall, last week we started reading the fourth book of Chumash, the book of Bamidbar. Bamidbar means in the desert. Because for the whole book of Bamidbar, the Jewish people are walking in the desert on our way from Egypt, where we left in the book of Shemot, all the way to get to our home of Israel. But wait a second, there is no Parsha this week. What? Because this Shabbat is the second day of Shavuot. And when Shabbat and a Chag are on the same day, instead of reading a Parsha on that Shabbat, we read from the Torah about the holiday that we're celebrating. So this Shabbat, instead of reading the next Parsha, we're going to be reading from the Torah about the holiday of Shavuot. On Shabbat, for the second day of Shavuot, we're also going to be reading Megillat Rut, the book of Rut, from later on in the Tanakh. So today we're going to learn the story of Megillat Rut. Megillat Rut takes place in the time of the Judges, which is right after the time of Yehoshua. So after the Jewish people finally make it into Israel, right after the end of the Torah, and they have their leadership under Yehoshua. And after Yehoshua finishes his time as leader, there is a series of judges who lead the Jewish people. And during that time is when Megillat Rut takes place. And during the beginning of Megillat Rut, there's a famine in Israel, which means there is no food growing. So some people stay and just do their best with what they're able to grow. But one guy named Elimelech, he decides that he's going to move away to where there is more food. And he takes his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Machlon and Chilion, and they move to a nearby country called Moab, because there's food growing in Moab. And they live in Moab for a long time. Years pass, Elimelech reaches the end of his life, Machlon and Chilion grow up, and they get married. Chilion marries a girl named Orpah from Moab, and Machlon marries a girl named Ruth, also from Moab. And time passes, and Machlon and Chilion reach the end of their lives. And eventually one day Naomi hears that back in Israel there is food growing again. And she says, great, I want to move back to Israel. And she turns to her daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, and she's like, okay, goodbye, I'm moving back to Israel. And they're like, no, we're going with you. And they follow her. And Naomi's like, guys, you should really go back to your own families. I don't have any money in Israel now. I'm not going to be able to help support you. And they say, no, we're going to stay with you. And Naomi says, it's really, really sweet of you. And I love you both very much. But it's really probably for the best for you to go back to your families and to your people, because you're not from Israel, you're from here in Moab, and it's not fair for me to take you away from where you've lived your whole lives. So Orpah gives Naomi a hug and a kiss, and they say goodbye, and Orpah goes home. But Ruth stays with Naomi. And Naomi says, Ruth, you should really go home like Orpah did. You saw how your sister-in-law Orpah went home. You should also go home, because I'm not really going to be able to help you if you move to Israel with me. And Ruth says, no, Naomi, stop telling me to go home, because my home is wherever you are. I'm going to go where you go, and I'm going to stay where you stay, because we're a part of we're a family now, and your family is my family, and your people are my people. I know I might not have been from Israel originally, and I might not have been born as a part of the Jewish people, but now your people is my people. I'm joining the Jewish people like you. Your home is my home. Your land of your home of Israel is my home of Israel. Your God is my God. I'm also praying only to Hashem from now on, and I'm going to live my whole life where you are. And then we says, wow, that's so amazing of you, Ruth. And I'll stop telling you to leave, and I'm just really happy that we're together. And Ruth and Naomi come home to Israel, to the city of Bethlehem. And Naomi's neighbors are so shocked, not just to see Naomi again, but to see how different she is from the last time they saw her. And they say, wow, is this Naomi? And Naomi says, well, yes, but also no, don't call me Naomi anymore. You can call me Mara, which means bitter, because I'm feeling a little bit bitter. I've had a very difficult life. I'm happy that I have Ruth with me, but other than that, I've had a very bitter time lately. So I feel like my name should be Mara, which means bitter. And when Ruth and Naomi get to Israel, it's just the start of the barley harvest, and people are gathering up the barley that was growing in their fields. And Ruth and Naomi, they don't have any money. Now remember, we've learned a few weeks ago in Parsha that people who do have land where they grow food have to leave what grows on the edges and everything that they drop or forget when they're gathering up for the poor people who don't have their own food or their own money to buy food. And Ruth and Naomi know their Parsha too, and they know this. And Ruth says, Naomi, I'm going to go find a field to gather some of that food that is left for the poor people so that we'll have food to eat. Because you're old and I want you to be able to sit at home and rest, and I'm younger, so I'll do that work. And Ruth goes to find a field to gather the stuff that people forgot or left behind for the poor people. And she ends up in the field of a guy named Boaz. And Ruth doesn't know it, but Boaz is actually related to Naomi's husband, Elimelech. And Ruth is working hard. She's gathering all the stuff that people drop, the stuff that's left for the poor people. And Boaz sees her and he asks one of his helpers, he says, excuse me, do you know who that girl is? And they say, yeah, that's Ruth. She came back from Moab with Naomi and she's been helping Naomi. She's been really, really helpful to Naomi. She's going to gather the food for the poor people so that she and Naomi will have food to eat. And she she started really early this morning. She hasn't even taken any breaks. And Boaz goes to Ruth and he introduces himself. He says, wow, it is so nice to meet you. He offers her some water. He offers her some lunch. And Ruth is like, you're being so nice to me. And I don't even know why. You don't even know me. I'm not from around here. I'm a stranger. And Boaz says, well, yes, I don't know you very well, but I know what you did because I heard about how nice you've been to Naomi and how you came back with her and how you're helping her so much and how you came here to gather food for yourself and for Naomi. And you know what? Boaz says, I don't think you should even go when you come back tomorrow and the next day, don't go to somebody else's field. Come back to my field and I'll make sure that nobody will bother you. And Ruth has her lunch and she goes back to work. And Boaz goes back to his helpers and he says, guys, you see that girl Ruth over there? I want you to do two things. Number one, make sure that nobody bothers her. And even if she takes something, she's confused, she takes something that's not really supposed to be for her, don't stop her. Don't get mad at her. Just let her take whatever she takes. And number two, Boaz says, I want you to accidentally on purpose, drop extra stuff for her to gather to make sure that she has a lot of stuff to gather for her and Naomi. So they drop extra stuff for Ruth. So Ruth ends up gathering a lot of food. And she comes home and shows Naomi. Naomi's like, wow, you gathered so much food, Ruth. That's amazing. Where were you? And Ruth says, oh, I was gathering in the field that belongs to this guy named Boaz. And Naomi says, wow, I know Boaz. He's related to Elimelech. That's amazing. Boaz is a really good guy. You should absolutely just keep on going back to Boaz's field because he'll make sure that nobody will bother you and he's going to treat you really nicely. So Ruth keeps on going back every day to gather what people drop and the stuff that's left for the poor people in Boaz's field for the whole barley harvest when they're gathering up the barley they grew and the whole wheat harvest when they gather up the wheat that was growing. And then one day Naomi says to Ruth, she says, you know, Ruth, I want to make sure that you're able to have a happy life. And I think that Boaz would be a really good person for you. You and Boaz really get along well. And also because Boaz is related to my husband Elimelech, he's somebody from our same Shevet, our same tribe of the Jewish people. So he's somebody who's able to buy my husband's field, which I'm not able to work in. So the field is useless to us right now, but he can buy the field and we'll have money to support us and he'll be able to get the field growing food again. And the field has to be bought by somebody who's going to be marrying somebody from our family. So maybe you can go and talk to Boaz and see if you and Boaz want to get married. And I know that Boaz is working late tonight, working with the wheat and the barley that he gathered up. So maybe you can go into where he's working and you can talk to him. So Ruth tiptoes over to where Boaz is working. And Boaz had actually fallen asleep. He was working so late that he took a nap. So Ruth goes and sits down beside him. And suddenly at midnight, Boaz wakes up and, there's that person beside me. And Ruth says, hi, it's me, Ruth. And Boaz says, oh, you scared me. It's you, Ruth. It's nice to see you, Ruth. What are you doing here? And Ruth explains how Naomi sent her to talk to Boaz about maybe they could get married and maybe Boaz can buy Elimelech's field so that Naomi is able to support herself and people are able to grow things in the field again. And Boaz says, wow, I'm so happy that you came to talk to me about this because I really like you also, Ruth. I know I've said before how much I admire you and how brave you are that you came to this new place and you're working so hard to help your mother-in-law and your friend Naomi. But the problem is, Boaz says, I am related to Elimelech, but I know somebody who's actually more closely related to Elimelech who kind of has dibs if it's a question of buying Elimelech's field. But it shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to ask that guy about it. And once he says he doesn't want to, then I can buy the field and you and I can get married. So Ruth goes home and Boaz says, wait, before you go home, I don't want you to go home without a present for Naomi. I'm going to give you a present. He gives her some more of the barley that he was working with. And Ruth goes home and she shows Naomi, wow, he gave me a present. He gave me some more barley, some more food to take home to you. And Naomi says, don't worry, because Boaz is a really good guy. He's going to take care of this right away. And sure enough, the next day, right away, Boaz goes to the gate of the city and he gathers 10 people as witnesses, and he calls over the person that he is related to, who's also related to Elimelech, and he says, excuse me, mister, can you please come over here? I have a question for you. And the guy says, yeah. And Boaz says, so Naomi, is back, and she needs to sell her husband Elimelech's field so that she can have money to support herself and so people can start growing food in that field again. And you're the most closely related to Elimelech, so you have dibs if you want to buy the field. And the guy says, great, I'll buy the field. And Boaz says, just one thing, though, because it's kind of a package deal. Whoever buys the field is also going to be the person who's marrying somebody from Naomi's family. In this case, Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth, who came back with her from Moab, who was married to Naomi's son, Machlon, while he was alive. So are you going to also get married to Ruth? And then the guy says, no, I can't do that. I don't know Ruth. I want to marry somebody that I know, that I like. Maybe I'm already married. Never mind. You can buy the field and you can marry Ruth. You clearly know Ruth better. Maybe you and Ruth get along. I don't want to get in the way of you. And what they did back then in that time, during the time of Megillat Rut, when people made a business deal like that, the person would actually take off their shoe. So the guy says, he takes off his shoe and he hands his shoe to Boaz. He says, I'm giving you my shoe and I'm giving you the dibs to buy the field and to marry Ruth if Ruth agrees to marry you. And Boaz takes his shoe and he says, yep, everybody is the witness that you're not buying the field, I'm buying the field, and also I'm going to marry Ruth. And he goes to Ruth. He says, yes, Ruth, there's no problem now. We can get married. And Ruth says, yes, I would like to get married to you. So Boaz and Ruth get married. And all the neighbors come by and they congratulate them. They say, wow, Mazel Tov. I hope you have a wonderful, happy life together. I hope you are able to build a Jewish home, a Jewish family, just like Rachel and Leah, who built up the first family of the Jewish people. And Ruth and Boaz have a baby. And all the neighbors say, wow, it's like Naomi has another baby because Naomi and Ruth are so close and Ruth has been so good to Naomi. And in fact, Naomi helps raise the baby. They name the baby Oved, and Naomi helps raise the baby Oved. And the book of Megillat Rut ends with a family tree that goes all the way back from Yaakov's son Yehuda down to Boaz. So we know that Boaz is from Shevet Yehuda. And down from Boaz to his son Oved, all the way down to David HaMelech, because King David is actually the great grandson of Ruth and Boaz, the grandson of Ruth and Boaz's kid Oved. And that's the end of Megillat Rut. Chag Sameach. I hope you have a wonderful Chag Shavuot and Shabbat Shalom.